Hi there, Victor Oliver, once again, playing the beach bum, overacting. Back on the beach. It has been quite windy and you may hear the breeze. Slightly annoying, I know, but let's see how it goes. Just a quick message really today about the coming solar eclipse on June the 21st. In universal time it will be at 6:41 in the morning. Universal time is basically GMT. You can easily work it out by looking at the time zone chart. This particular solar eclipse will occur in Cancer. It's the first solar eclipse of the year. That's from memory, I think. I think I'm right in saying that. A solar eclipse is essentially when the moon comes between the Earth and the Sun, and the moon will be at its furthest from Earth in what is known as an annular eclipse. So we're not all going to see this eclipse. Parts of Africa will see it, parts of Asia, significantly China. I say significantly because I think with it being the source of the COVID-19 infection, what we're seeing in the chart will be quite significant for China, but actually it has a bearing on us all. So the main feature of this solar eclipse is that it's at 0 degrees Cancer. It's right at the start. That in itself is quite significant, marking a new phase. There are a number of different aspects. I'm not going to go into the whole chart, it'd be too boring, but the chief aspect that I want to talk about today is the position of retrograde Saturn at the time of the eclipse. And retrograde Saturn will be at 0 degrees Aquarius. It's heading back into Capricorn, and it's what we call an inconjunct aspect with the solar eclipse. And an inconjunct, or a quincunx as it's known, usually indicates a set of circumstances which are hard to reconcile or impossible to reconcile. With an opposition, you can say perhaps you can meet halfway house. Just changing the direction a bit. You can meet at a halfway house maybe, or compromise, but with a quincunx you can't. You've just got to live with a set of circumstances and make the most of it. And what's interesting about this eclipse Saturn inconjunct is where the planets sit in the chart. So if we look at the London chart, for example, Saturn sits in the 6th house, going backwards. That's not the best place for it. That has to do with the workers, so to speak. It has to do with public health as well. And what I would say from this is that with the solar eclipse in Cancer, and Cancer is a domestic sign, it's a sign of national interest as well, inconjunct Saturn in the 6th house, I would say that we have to be very careful about our public health, about the possible risks of a second wave of infection. I don't say that it will happen. What I'm saying is that the obvious indication in the chart is that we can't have it all our own way at the moment. Clearly Saturn, which represents the rules, the restrictions, and sometimes the dangerous realities of a situation, in a negative aspect to the solar eclipse, is not necessarily very good news. In other words, I think we have to proceed with caution. And the other thing to be said about this eclipse is that it is what we call out of sign square with Mars, which is close to Neptune. Neptune being one of the indications of infection. And I would say that there are volatilities in society at the moment. We know that anyway, you have to be an astrologer. But it's interesting to see it reflected in the chart itself. In the American chart, it's quite interesting, using the Sibley chart for the US. Saturn is in its 2nd house, which is the house of the economy, finance and so forth, and the eclipse is actually in America's 7th house. So the next few months are going to be dominated, I think, by not just the domestic situation, obviously, but also foreign relations and trade deals and things like that. And it could very well be that Donald Trump is not having things his own way whatsoever, particularly with the inconjunct. It could be that there are certain financial restraints. It could be that countries are not cooperating, or that he's falling out with them. You could say, so what's new? but these are marked and certainly will be a big theme of the next few months. So far as Donald Trump's personal chart is concerned, the solar eclipse is not what I would call terminally dangerous. That's always a dangerous thing to say. But what I'm saying is that in his natal chart, the solar eclipse doesn't actually form a sharp aspect. But what is interesting is that the eclipse and Saturn do compromise his ability to do what he pleases. And I think an increasing theme of his presidency is Donald Trump saying one thing and then realizing that he's got to do something else. And although that's been a theme of his presidency, this will become more marked because he's gradually losing power, in my view. Even if he wins the election in November, his chart, generally speaking, is past its best. And Saturn at some point will be going forward and heading into his 6th house, which could raise themes to do with his own personal health. I don't say that as a forecast, I say that only as an indication of the astrology, shall we say. So perhaps not the jolliest beach bum video that I've made. Solar eclipses, generally speaking, in traditional astrology, and I'm not a traditionalist, usually augur some kind of bad news as a prelude to a new phase, which can be a good thing. I would say that this particular solar eclipse is volatile because the solar eclipse will be forming an out-of-sign square with Mars. An out-of-sign square is not strong, it just shows that there are volatilities in society and that there is a tremendous need for leaders and even for the people to understand that we're still in a situation at the moment that requires us to behave in a way that, in a sense, we don't want to. So lockdown, for example, is an example of that. So caution is the word. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had to rush a bit today, so much to do. The sun's trying to come out. There we are, there's the sea. Very calm. And I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.